The quarantine.
The weight of small stations, he was a paperwork man. Then the numbers started climbing. My name is Keth Voss. Was the station administrator of Outpost Marin 4, a collective border installation in the outer reach of the Lethani corridor. 2,000 residents, 3 docking platforms, 14 administrative staff, 1 medical bay with 2 qualified physicians, and supplies rated for routine injuries and standard issue illness. We had a very good filing system. I am proud of that. The filing system held up throughout everything. I want to be clear about what I am before I tell you what happened. I am not a military officer. I am not a crisis specialist. I passed my administrative examinations in the 93rd percentile. I have never fired a weapon in my professional life. I had, at the time of the incident, submitted 7 consecutive quarterly reports with 0 compliance violations. My wife, Sira Voss, was 31 cycles pregnant with our first child. I tell you this because everything that followed, every decision I made, every regulation I violated, every form I will spend the rest of my career attempting to retroactively justify, I made as a man who had never been tested. And if I am being completely honest, I am still not certain I made the right choices. I am only certain about the outcome. The morning of the 14th of the 3rd cycle started like every other morning. I reviewed the overnight docking logs, 3 cargo haulers, 2 courier vessels, 1 scheduled maintenance team from collective fleet operations. I signed the transit authorizations. I filed the customs clearances. I sent a reminder to the maintenance team about the restricted access zones near the water reclamation infrastructure. They always needed reminding. Sierra was still asleep when I left the residential quarters. She had been sleeping more than usual. The physician had said this was normal for late-cycle pregnancy. I had read the relevant documentation 3 times. At 0800 station time, I sat down at my desk with my morning report stack and a warm cup of fermented bark tea, which Sierra had told me tasted like something found in a drainage channel, but which I found very soothing. At 0847, my communications terminal flagged an urgent message from the medical bay. Dr. Ven Mollies was one of our 2 station physicians. She had been with Marin 4 for 11 cycles, which was longer than I had. She was methodical. She did not send urgent flags without reason. The message read, Administrator Keth Voss, we have 4 patients presenting with identical rapid onset symptomatic clusters, fever, respiratory distress, dermal hemorrhaging. I do not recognize the pathogen. Requesting immediate consultation and potential isolation protocol review. I read it twice. I opened the Emergency Protocols Manual, which I had never opened before, and which was much longer than I had realized. I found the section on infectious disease response. I filed a preliminary alert with Collective Central Medical. I flagged it Priority 2, Significant Concern, Investigation Required. Priority 1 was reserved for mass casualty events. We did not have a mass casualty event. We had 4 sick residents and 1 confused physician. I sent Dr. Ven Mollies a formal acknowledgement, confirmed I had initiated contact with Central Medical, and told her to keep me updated. By 0920, we had 11 patients. I upgraded the alert to Priority 1 at 1100 when we reached 23 patients, and Dr. Ven Mollies used the word explosive in her transmission to me. I want to clarify. She was describing the transmission rate of the pathogen. She was not being dramatic. Dr. Ven Mollies was not a dramatic person. That was what concerned me. Central Medical's automated acknowledgement system confirmed receipt of my Priority 1 alert, and informed me that a response team would be dispatched within the standard window of 18 to 22 standard days. I read that twice as well. Then I opened the emergency protocols manual again and looked for the section on what to do when the standard response window was significantly longer than the time it appeared you had. There was no such section. I walked to the medical bay at 11:30. I should have gone sooner. I had been managing it from my desk, which is how I manage everything at a desk, through documentation. It is efficient. It keeps the paperwork tidy. The medical bay had 12 beds. We had 19 patients. The overflow was in the adjacent supply corridor, lying on floor mats and emergency bedding that one of the maintenance workers had located from somewhere. Dr. Van Mollies met me at the door. She was wearing a full isolation suit. Her secondary physician, Dr. Torrenset, was in the ward moving between patients. "You should not come in without a suit," she said. "I don't have a suit." "Then you should stay at the door." I stayed at the door. Through the transparency panel I could see the patients. Some of them I knew by name. Hendrak Voss, no relation, was a cargo coordinator who played strategic tiles with a group in the recreation center on rest days. He was one of the overflow patients. He was not playing anything. "How is this spreading?" I asked. "Airborne, I think. She was running a scanner over a culture sample while she spoke, not looking at me. "The dermal hemorrhaging is the symptom I can't place. I've cross-referenced every standard pathogen database I have access to. Nothing matches cleanly." "What does it match uncleanly?" She paused, looked at me. "A hemorrhagic fever strain, collective cataloged. Last outbreak on record was in the Vethen system, 47 years ago. 200 dead before it burned out. But this isn't the same pathogen. It's a variant. I can't tell how much of a variant without equipment I don't have." I returned to my desk. I upgraded my Priority 1 alert to Priority 1 critical, which was the highest classification available. The automated system acknowledged receipt within 3 seconds and confirmed the dispatch estimate was unchanged, 18 to 22 days. I called Sierra at 1300. She answered from the residential quarters, sitting up in bed with a book she had been reading for the past 2 months without finishing. She said she was fine. She asked why I sounded like someone had stepped on my neck. "We have a situation," I said. "I need you to stay in the residential sector. Do not go to the common areas. Do not go to the market. I'll arrange for food delivery." "Keth." Her voice changed. "How bad?" "I'm managing it." A pause. She knew what I sounded like when I was managing something I did not know how to manage. "I'll stay in," she said. "Come home for meal time." "I'll try." I did not make meal time. By 1400 we had 31 patients and the second maintenance corridor had been converted into overflow. By 1700 we had 47 and 2 of the original patients were in critical status. By 2200 we had 63. The filing system was still holding up perfectly.
All the wrong tools.
He convened his department heads. The list of options was not encouraging. I called an emergency department convening at 22:30. The station's 7 department heads sat around the conference table. Security Chief Hal Wren, Infrastructure Director Ashen Veth, Supply Coordinator Bren Tall, Medical Dr. Van Mollies on comm from the Bay because she would not leave, and 3 others whose contributions that night amounted to very thorough expressions of concern. "Mortality," I said. I hated the word. I used it anyway because it was the correct word. Dr. Van Mollies, status, 2 confirmed deaths as of 22:15, she said through the comm. Her voice was flat in the way that voices go flat when there is too much to process. Hendrak Voss and a child from level 4 residential. The child was 3 cycles old. Nobody spoke. The progression is very fast, she continued. Onset to critical status in 4 to 6 hours. In the cases I've tracked, I'm attempting supportive care, hydration, respiratory support, fever management. It's slowing the progression but not stopping it. I need antivirals. I need a proper diagnostic array. I need equipment this station was not rated to carry. When can we get it? Halren asked. Standard medical dispatch is 18 to 22 days, I said. Another silence. Longer. Administrator, Ashenveth said carefully. Progression rate this fast, I know. I did not let him finish the sentence. If he did not finish it, I did not have to hear the number it ended with. We went through options. It took 40 minutes and the list was not encouraging. We could attempt an emergency rerouting request to the nearest collective medical facility. The nearest was Collective Station Veth 4, 11 days in transit even at maximum drive. I filed the request. The automated system acknowledged it. Yep. We could attempt to source medical supplies from docked cargo vessels. Brental checked. 2 of the 3 cargo haulers had already departed. The third was carrying construction materials. We could attempt to quarantine all exposed residents, but Dr. Van Molly's estimated that with the transmission rate, exposure was already station-wide. We did not have enough isolation capacity. We did not have enough suits. We barely had enough medication to manage the current patients, let alone 60% of 2,000 residents. There is one other option, Halren said. He put his pad on the table. There was a signal trace on it, passive monitoring data from the docking approach corridor. A vessel sitting at the edge of Marin 4 outer sensor range. Not docked. Not transmitting on standard channels. Running quiet. It's been sitting there for 6 hours, he said. It responded to an automated range query. The ID reads as Terran registered, civilian medical class. The table went quiet in a different way. I looked at the ID on the pad for a long time. Nightingale. The Nightingale, I said. You recognize it? I was a thorough administrator. I read my intelligence bulletins. The Nightingale had appeared in 3 of them over the past 4 years. A Terran medical relief vessel operating in the border territories, approaching collective adjacent space without authorization, providing medical assistance to non-aligned species in ways that technically circumvented the embargo protocol. Every time, the Intelligence Directorate had filed a formal objection. Every time, the vessel had been gone before anyone could do anything about it. It's a human ship, I said. Yes, Halren said, humans are a restricted species, technology embargo, active suppression status. Admitting a human vessel to this station is a violation of. I stopped. I knew exactly what it was a violation of. I had the relevant regulation codes memorized. It's a violation of 16 separate collective statutes. Yes, Halren said again. They picked up our distress signal, Dr. Van Molly said through the comm. Administrator, they picked up our signal and they came here. They're sitting outside waiting to see if we'll open the airlock. I looked at the table. I looked at the pad with the Nightingale's ID. I looked at the comm panel where Dr. Van Molly's voice was coming from. I need 20 minutes, I said. I need to review the emergency protocols. Halren stared at me. The manual, I said. There might be a provision for exigent. Administrator. His voice was very quiet. There are 63 people in the medical bay. There will be more by morning. The Nightingale is right there. I went to get the manual. There was no provision. I went back to my office. I sat at my desk. I opened a formal decision document, the kind that goes into the administrative record. I began typing the header. Emergency Authorization Review, Outpost Marin 4, Cycle 3, Day 14, 23:11 hours. I got that far and stopped. I thought about the child from Level 4 residential, 3 cycles old. I did not know the child's name. I should have known. I should have made more of an effort to know all my residents by name, not just the ones I saw regularly. I thought about Sierra. She was 31 cycles, normal pregnancy, low risk, but 31 cycles and a hemorrhagic fever spreading through an inadequately equipped station, and the nearest medical response was 18 to 22 days. I thought about what Dr. Van Mollies had said very quietly before the meeting ended. 2 confirmed deaths. The progression is very fast. I thought about the filing system, still intact, still holding up, very organized, very useless. I finished typing the decision document. It ran to 4 pages. I cited every relevant regulation. I cited the emergency humanitarian provision in the collective's original charter, Article 7, subsection 12, which had been written 400 years ago and had never, to my knowledge, been invoked. I noted that I was taking full personal responsibility. I noted that I expected to face a review board. I noted that I was proceeding regardless. I transmitted a copy to Collective Central Command under the subject line, Emergency Humanitarian Override Invocation, Outpost Marin 4. I opened the external communications channel. Nightingale, I said. This is Station Administrator Keth Voss, Outpost Marin 4. I am authorizing emergency docking under Article 7, subsection 12 of the Collective Charter. You are cleared for Platform 2. Please be advised that this authorization will be subject to review and does not constitute formal recognition of. I stopped. I looked at what I was about to say. Come in, please. A pause on the channel, then a voice, human male, accented in a way I had read about but never heard. Marin 4, this is the Nightingale. We copy your authorization. Docking in 11 minutes. Tell your medical team to meet us at the bay. We're coming in hot. What's the current patient count? 63 confirmed, 47 suspected exposure, 2 fatalities. Another pause. When the voice came back, it was calm, but with something under it, something tight and focused. Copy that. We'll need your full diagnostic logs from the first case. Everything your physician has. What's the station's air circulation pattern? I had the schematics memorized. I started reciting them. Good, the voice said. See you in 11 minutes, Administrator. You made the right call. I was not sure about that. I filed the decision document. Then I walked to the medical bay.
The Nightingale lands.
He had read the physiological profiles. None of it had prepared him for the simple fact of them. The Nightingale was smaller than I expected. Civilian medical class, a converted transport with hull additions that did not quite match the original construction, like someone had bolted extra modules onto it in a hurry and then bolted more on after that. The paint was worn around the airlocks. There were markings on the hull I couldn't read, human script, and what appeared to be a hand-painted image of a bird with its wings extended. The airlock opened before the docking clamps had fully engaged. 4 humans came out first. I had read their physiological profiles. I had seen the imagery in the intelligence bulletins. None of that had prepared me for the simple fact of them. Large, 2-limbed bipeds moving with an efficiency that did not match how big they were. They were already pulling equipment from the ship before they had finished stepping onto the platform. The 5th one stopped. He was older, gray at the temples in the way that appeared in human documentation. He wore a medical coat over what looked like civilian clothing, and he carried a kit bag that clipped to his shoulder, and he looked at me with an expression I could not fully read and said, "Administrator Keth Voss." "Yes," I said. "James Ockhafer," he said. "I run the Nightingale." He extended his right hand. I knew from documentation what this meant, and I raised my own hand and we completed the gesture. His grip was firm. "Walk me to the medical bay. Tell me everything your physician hasn't put in writing. He moved fast. I had to extend my stride to keep pace. Onset timeline on your first case, he asked. 0847 station time. Fever and respiratory distress initially. Dermal hemorrhaging presenting within 2 hours. And your physician cross-referenced the Vethen hemorrhagic strain. Yes, how did you? Because that's what it looks like, superficially. He turned a corner without slowing. It's not Vethen. Your physician is right that it's a variant. It's actually a derivative of something much older. What did your first patient have in common with your second and third? They were all in the cargo transit sector. Level 2. What came through level 2 in the 72 hours before symptom onset? I thought 2 cargo manifests, construction materials, and a shipment of Lethani biological specimens, zoological collection. Akafar stopped walking. His people were 3 steps ahead before they realized and doubled back. Zoological collection from where? He said. I'd have to check the manifest. Check it. Right now. He had already started walking again. Biological specimens from the Lethani outer zone can carry a dormant strain that activates under thermal stress, like a pressurized cargo hold in transit. Your quarantine should cover level 2 first, then expand outward based on air circulation. I'm going to need your circulation schematics overlaid with the patient location data. I already have those. He looked at me sideways, half a smile. Good administrator. I have a very good filing system. I said. He did not laugh, but something shifted in his face that was almost humor. Dr. Van Molly's met us at the medical bay door. She had been working for 22 hours. She looked it. She also looked when she saw Akafar like someone who had been drowning and had just seen something to grab onto. You're the physician, Akafar said. Van Molly, Station Medical. This is, she hesitated. You're human. Last I checked, your patient files. He held out his hand. She looked at it, then at me. I gave her a small nod that I was not entirely sure was authoritative. She handed him the pad. He was reading while he walked through the door. His team was already inside, setting up equipment they had brought from the ship, things I did not recognize, arranged with the efficiency of people who had done this in places much worse than Marin 4. One of them, a young woman with short hair and very fast hands, was already running what appeared to be a portable diagnostic array. Her name is Vasquez Lynn, Akafar said without looking up from the file. Don't ask her questions right now, she's working. He stopped at the nearest patient bed. He examined the patient, Hendrak's neighbor, a woman named Preltassin who was barely conscious. He checked her dermal markings, her respiratory rate, the color of her eyes. Then he moved to the next bed. You have the right supportive care approach, he told Van Molly's. Respiratory support first, fever management second. Your hydration protocol needs adjustment. The hemorrhaging is causing electrolyte depletion that's accelerating the cardiac stress. We need to compensate. He was already at the third bed. What antivirals are you carrying? She listed them. None of those will touch this directly. He did not say it unkindly, but 3 of them combined at modified dosage will slow the replication rate enough to buy time while we synthesize a targeted treatment. He stopped. How long to synthesize? I don't know, she said honestly. He turned to the young woman with the diagnostic array. Lynn, 6 hours for full genomic map, she said without looking up. Another 4 to finalize the compound, maybe less. 10 hours, he said to Van Molly's. Can you hold your critical cases for 10 hours with the modified protocol? She looked at her patients, at the overflow in the corridor, at the 2 empty beds that had been full this morning. I can try, she said. Then let's get started. I was not useful in the medical bay. That was a fact I had to accept very quickly. I was in the way of people who knew what they were doing, which was a new experience for me. So I did what I knew how to do. I coordinated the Level 2 quarantine Halren security team sealing off the cargo transit sector, redirecting foot traffic, running the compliance checks I could run from a pad while walking the corridors. I arranged food delivery for the medical bay staff, human and collective both, because Akafar's people had come off a 12-hour transit and nobody had eaten. I located 3 additional portable air filtration units in maintenance storage that could supplement the medical bay's circulation system. I updated my emergency communications to Collective Central every 2 hours, even though the automated responses were still saying 18 to 22 days. Documentation, coordination, logistics, the things I was built for. At 0300, Vasquez-Lin sent me a message requesting access to the station's pharmaceutical synthesis lab. I did not know we had a pharmaceutical synthesis lab. I checked. We did a small one, basic grade, used for producing routine medications to reduce supply shipment frequency. I had approved its installation budget 4 cycles ago and apparently never needed it until now. I sent her the access codes and the schematics in under 4 minutes. She sent back, "Thanks, you're fast." I replied, "I have a good filing system." A pause, then lol, I did not know what that meant. I filed it anyway. My comm unit chimed at 0400. "Sierra, you didn't come home," she said, not accusatory, just stating it. "No, the emergency. How bad is it really?" I was standing in the corridor outside the medical bay. Through the transparency panel, I could see Akafar moving between patients, checking the Roman 4 lines his team had established. Dr. Van Mollies was at the monitoring station. Vasquez-Lin was still in the synthesis lab. "It's serious," I said. "We're managing it." "Keth, how bad? We've had deaths." My voice came out flatter than I intended. "Two, we're trying to prevent more." "How?" I made a judgment call. I invoked an emergency provision and admitted an embargoed vessel, human medical ship. "They are in the bay now." "Silence." "Humans," she said. "Yes." "And you let them dock." Article 7. Subsection 12. I documented everything. Another silence. Then she said, "Are they helping?" "Yes, significantly." "Then you did the right thing." No hesitation. She was always faster to conclusions than I was. "Are you eating?" "I arranged food delivery for." "That's not what I asked." "I'll eat something." "Keth." Her voice softened. "Come tell me when it's over." "I will." "I love you." "I love you," I said, and stood in the corridor for a moment after the call ended, looking at the medical bay full of my residents and the humans who had come to help them. Then I went to find something to eat and got back to work. By 0600, we had 81 confirmed cases. The modified antiviral protocol had stabilized 12 of the most critical. 6 were still deteriorating. We lost another patient at 0530, an elder male from the residential sector, level 3. His name was Aren Veth. He had been a retired navigation officer. He had come to Marin 8 cycles ago to be near his daughter's family. I knew this because I had processed his residency transfer application. 3 dead. I updated the report to Collective Central. 18 to 22 days. At 0700, Vasquez-Lin emerged from the synthesis lab. She was still moving fast, but there was something different in her face, something that I, even unused to reading human expressions, could recognize as close to satisfaction. She went to Akafar. I could not hear what she said through the panel, but he straightened up and turned and said something to Van Mollies. Then he looked toward the transparency panel, toward me. He came out. "We have it," he said. "Preliminary compound. Lynn needs 2 more hours to run stability checks and produce the first treatment batch. If it works the way she thinks it works." He stopped. "It'll work. She's done this before." "How long until you can treat patients?" 2 hours, then 6 to 8 hours before we see response in the critical cases. We should know by this afternoon. I looked at the medical bay. At 81 patients and 6 critical cases, and 1 physician who had been awake for 29 hours. Dr. Ackefer, I said, what do you need? Sleep, he said. In about 16 hours. Right now, more synthesis lab capacity. Lynn is going to need to produce enough compound for potentially the whole station. What else do you have in that lab? I told him. He went back inside. I filed an updated report and began drafting a resource allocation memo.
What Sierra's name means.
The personal and the professional collided. He had to ask the humans for help with the most personal thing he had. The call came at 0912 from the residential sector medic, a level 1 aide named Daranos who handled basic health checks and was absolutely not trained for what he was dealing with. Administrator, your wife. She's in distress. I need a physician. Now. I was moving before he finished the sentence. The residential sector was a 4-minute walk at normal pace. I did it in 90 seconds. Sierra was on the bed. She was pale, the deep graying pale that means blood pressure dropping, not the minor pale of too little sleep. Daranos was beside her looking like a man who was very much aware of everything he did not know how to do. What's happening? I said. She was fine an hour ago, he said. She started having pain, not normal pregnancy pain, she said, sharp, low, then this. Sierra opened her eyes. Keth. Her voice was thin, not weak. Sierra's voice was never weak, but compressed like she was holding something in. I'm all right. You're not all right. I looked at Daranos. Is it the fever? Has she been exposed? I don't know. I don't have the equipment to. He spread his hands helplessly. The medical bay is full. Both our physicians are. I left Daranos with Sierra and went back to the medical bay at a run. Ackefer was at the monitoring station reviewing the first compound dosages. He looked up when I came in. He read my face in about half a second. What happened? He said, my wife pregnant, 31 cycles, she's in the residential sector. Our medic doesn't have the training or equipment. I stopped. I was out of breath. I was not sure if it was from running. I stopped again. He was already picking up his kit bag. Room number, he said. R14, level 2 residential, not in the quarantine zone. No, level 2 residential, not level 2 cargo, different sector. Then let's go. He turned to Vasquez Lynn. Hold the dosing schedule. I'll be back within the hour. To Dr. Ven Mollies, you have everything you need for the next 60 minutes. Go, Ven Mollies said. He followed me out the door. Sierra looked at Ackefer when we came in. She looked at me. Whatever she had expected, it was not a human physician. This is Dr. Ackefer, I said. He's here to help. She studied him. Sierra was a structural engineer. She assessed things for load-bearing capacity before trusting them. You're from the Nightingale, she said. Yes. He was already setting up equipment, quick and professional. I'm going to need to run a few scans. Tell me about the pain. Low, sharp, started 2 hours ago. She was watching him work. The baby moved this morning, then less. Ackefer's expression stayed neutral, but something in his hands moved fractionally faster. Has your physician cleared you for late cycle travel? This station is quite distant from a maternity center. My physician said it was fine. I had a scan at cycle 28. Okay. He ran the first scan, looked at the results, ran the second. Okay. He said it again differently. He looked at me. Placental issue. It's not the fever. This is obstetric, unrelated to the outbreak. Likely been developing for a few days. She needs intervention. He did not say the word I heard underneath it. He said instead, she needs a surgeon. Do you have anyone on staff with obstetric surgical training? Our physicians are. I know. I'm asking if there's anyone else. No. I looked at Sierra. She was looking at me. No, there's no one else. Ackefer set down the scanner. He pulled out his comm and sent a message to his ship. 30 seconds passed. Yun is a surgeon, he said. She trained in maternal medicine before she joined my crew. She's been treating outbreak patients all night, but she's available. He looked at me. With your permission. I thought about the regulations, the 16 statutes, the review board I had already guaranteed myself. Yes, I said, whatever she needs, please. He spoke into the calm, then he looked at Sierra and said, "Ma'am, a surgeon named Dr. Yun is coming here. She's very good. You and the baby are going to be fine." Sierra looked at him for a long moment. "Thank you," she said. I waited in the corridor. I had my pad. I had 18 unreviewed messages from department heads. I had a resource allocation memo half-written. I had, presumably, a response pending from Collective Central regarding my Article 7 invocation. I read none of it. Dr. Yun had arrived within 10 minutes of Akafar's call. She was young, younger than I expected, which I recognized was an irrational expectation to have about any physician. She came with a surgical kit and a portable sterile field generator, and she introduced herself to Sierra with a directness that was, judging by Sierra's expression, immediately reassuring. Then they sent me out of the room. I sat in the corridor. I had my pad. I looked at it. Halren sent a status update. Quarantine compliance on level 2 cargo at 98%. Good. Vasquez Lin sent a message. First compound batch ready for administration. 12 critical patients being dosed. Good. Brental sent a message. Food supply stock stable, no distribution issues. Good. I looked at the closed door to R14. Akafar came out of the room 20 minutes into the procedure. He had not been needed for it. Dr. Yun had everything under control, but he had stayed to assist. Now he came and sat against the opposite wall. We were both quiet for a moment. "First child," he said. "Yes. Your wife is strong. Yun is good." He said it like a fact, not a comfort. I preferred it that way. "You've done this before," I said. "The outbreak response. Not just medically, docking at stations that shouldn't let you in." He looked at his hands. "Yes. Why?" I asked. "Then, that's not, I mean, you're under embargo. Every time you do this, you're violating collective law. You know what that means if you're caught." "I know what it means." "Then why?" He was quiet for a moment, not avoiding the question, thinking about the answer. "Because there were people dying," he said, "and we had the capability to help. And those two facts, when they're both true at the same time." He stopped, started again. "In human medicine, we have a principle. It's been around for 3,000 years. It says, do no harm. But there's another part, a part people sometimes forget, which is that having the ability to help and choosing not to use it is also a harm." He looked at the door to R14. "So, we go where we're needed." I thought about Collective Central's automated responses, 18 to 22 days. "Our system would have sent someone," I said, "eventually." "I know," Akafar said gently, "in 18 to 22 days. Neither of us said anything else." The door to R14 opened at 11:48. Dr. Yun came out. She pulled down her surgical mask. "Both stable," she said. "The intervention was successful. Your wife will need rest, at least 48 hours, no exertion. The baby," she paused. I have thought about that pause many times since. It was not a pause of bad news. It was the pause of someone deciding whether to say something additional or just the necessary thing. She chose the necessary thing. "The baby is fine, healthy, strong heartbeat." I stood up. I was not sure what I was going to do. I think I was going to say something formal and appropriate. What came out was, "Can I go in?" "Yes," she said. I went in. Sierra was lying back against the pillows. She looked exhausted and relieved and more herself than she had an hour ago. She turned her head when I came in. "Paperwork go well," she said. I sat on the edge of the bed and held her hand for a long time without saying anything useful at all.
The treatment takes.
The compound worked. The crisis pivoted from worse to better. At 1400 hours, 12 hours after the Nightingale docked, Dr. Van Mollies sent me a message that contained in its entirety the following text: "It's working." I was in my office. I had finally started catching up on the 18 messages. I read hers 4 times. Then I went to the medical bay. The change was visible. I had spent enough time looking through the transparency panel over the past 20 hours to know what the bay looked like at its worst. This was not that. The critical patients were not critical in the same way. Some of them were awake, which none of them had been at 0600. Tassin, who had been barely conscious when Akaffer first examined her, was sitting partially upright. She noticed me through the panel and raised one hand, weakly, in what I recognized as a gesture of acknowledgement. I raised mine back. Van Mollies came out to the corridor. She had finally put on a clean coat. She looked like she had not slept, but she looked like she was no longer afraid she would not get the chance. "The compound is working," she said. "Not uniformly. 3 of the critical cases are still fragile, but the replication rate has dropped across the board. The fever response is improving. The hemorrhaging is stopping." She looked at me with an expression I would describe as controlled. "We're going to lose some, but not as many. Administrator we were looking at." She stopped. "I know," I said. "The human synthesis the compound Lynn produced." "I know." She nodded, looked back through the panel. "I'd like to go to sleep for about 14 years. After the current crisis resolves. Obviously after." She went back inside. Akaffer found me in the corridor an hour later. He had changed into a clean shirt from the ship, same medical coat, different shirt. He was carrying 2 containers of something hot and he held one out to me. "What is it?" I asked. "Tea. Ship supply. It's probably not what you're used to." I took it. It was not what I was used to. It tasted like warm wood and something sharp that I could not identify. I drank it anyway. "Final patient count for the compound distribution is 93, he said. "We're prioritizing severity. Lynn is running a second batch for the remainder of the station. Anyone who hasn't developed symptoms yet gets a prophylactic dose." He looked at his own container. "Your synthesis lab is small but functional. She says you've got a good setup. I approved the installation budget 4 cycles ago." "Good call." He drank. "Final mortality projection, assuming no further complications and the compound performs as expected, is between 4 and 7 out of 2,000. A pause. "It's not nothing, but it's very far from what it was going to be." "Yes," I said, "it is." We stood in the corridor for a moment with our bad tea, not saying anything. It was not uncomfortable. It was the silence of people who have been in the same emergency and are only now beginning to understand that they might come out the other side. "Dr. Akaffer," I said. "I don't know how to express what the appropriate—" I stopped. I was good at documentation. I was apparently not good at this. "Thank you." He looked at me, not with pride, not with the satisfaction of someone who wants credit, just with something that was tired and genuine. "That's what the Nightingale is for," he said. "What do we owe you?" I asked. I needed to know for the documentation. I was already thinking about what line item this would fall under. Akaffer looked at me blankly. "Payment," I said. "Medical services, equipment usage, pharmaceutical synthesis. We consumed your supply stocks." "Nothing," he said. "That's I need to file a administrator." His voice was patient. "We don't charge for this. We don't send invoices to people who were dying. The Nightingale runs on donations and on the fact that 3 of my crew have jobs in collective adjacent space that pay well, and they funnel the surplus into this." He gestured vaguely at the corridor, the station, the last 24 hours. "We don't want anything. We never have." I looked at him. I was a document man. I believed in transactions, in exchange, in the proper recording of debts and credits. "That's not," I started. I know it's not how things usually work, he said, but it's how we work. A pause. You can file whatever documentation satisfies the requirement. Put down humanitarian aid, no compensation requested. I imagine you have a form for it somewhere. I thought about it. I'll create one. I said. He almost smiled. Good administrator.
What the file said.
He was an administrator. He had access. He found the answer. The final patient count was 5. 5 dead out of 2,000 residents. Hendrak Voss, the child from level 4. Aren Veth, the retired navigator. 2 others, an engineer named Sosren and a young administrator from my own department, first posting. 3 cycles out of training named Kestoral. I read their files before the Nightingale departed. It felt like the right thing to do. I knew Hendrak from strategic tiles. I had processed Aren Veth's residency application. Kestoral had submitted a leave request to attend his sister's bonding ceremony 6 cycles from now. I had already approved it. I approved it anyway. It seemed wrong to revoke it. Vasquez Lin and Dr. Yun had spent the morning finishing the prophylactic distribution. Every resident on the station who had not yet received the compound, dosed and cleared. By 0700, the synthesis lab had produced enough for twice the population. Lin had left the formula in our lab system, the full genomic map of the pathogen, the synthesis protocol, everything. I had asked her if she was sure she wanted to leave all of that. She had looked at me like the question was faintly baffling. Of course, she said. Why wouldn't we? Akafar was at the docking platform at 0900, preparing to board. His crew was loading the last of their equipment. He had his pad out and was scrolling through something. Not ship systems, I thought. Something else. Reading, I asked, checking something. He did not look up immediately. Tell me, has your station ever had a case of Vethen fever or a close variant before this outbreak? I thought, no, first documented case, that's in the record. And your central medical, you filed priority 1 alerts. When did you get your first substantive response, not automated acknowledgement, actual human response? I checked my log. I'm still waiting for one. He looked up from the pad. 17 hours after the outbreak began, I said. 63 patients, 2 dead. I still have not received a non-automated response from Collective Central Medical. Something moved in his expression. He looked back at the pad. What is it? I asked. Do you know when the Collective first cataloged the Vethen hemorrhagic strain? 47 years ago, the outbreak in the Vethen system. And what happened after that outbreak? It burned out. 200 dead. Pathogen was documented. And then what? I looked at him. I assume the relevant medical authorities filed their reports. He was scrolling again. The Nightingale has been operating in this region for 12 years. We've seen a lot of outbreaks, contacted a lot of collective station medical facilities, asked a lot of questions. He stopped scrolling. You said your physician recognized the Vethen strain variant, that she'd cross-referenced the pathogen database. Yes. Which database? The standard collective medical archive. The public archive, he said. The one available to station-level facilities. Yes. He turned the pad around and showed me the screen. It was a research paper, dense with notation, not the kind of document I process daily, but the structure was familiar enough. A medical research summary. The header read, Broad-spectrum treatment protocol for Vethen-class hemorrhagic variants, preliminary study, cycles 4, 289-4, 291, 30 years ago. A research team from 3 collective species, Lethani, Marin, and Gorathi, developed a treatment protocol for the full class of Vethen-derived strains, Akafar said. Not just the original, the variants, including the kind of temperature-activated cargo-borne derivative you just experienced. This paper, the full protocol, was published in a research journal accessible to collective member species in good standing. I stared at it. That protocol, I said slowly. If it had been in your station's medical archive, Dr. Van Molly's would have recognized the pathogen family. She would have had a treatment baseline. She might have managed this without us. He paused. Might have. Why isn't it in the archive? He looked at me steadily. That's the question I keep asking, he said. Every time we show up somewhere like this, every time we synthesize something that should already exist in the public record. He put the pad away. I don't have the answer, but I think someone does. He extended his hand. I raised mine. We completed the gesture. Then he walked up the ramp and the airlock closed, and the Nightingale undocked and moved away from platform 2 and out through the approach corridor and back into the dark. I went back to my office. I am a thorough administrator. I have good access credentials. Station-level clearance covers the standard medical archive. But in my 12 cycles of administrative service, I had also accumulated a number of secondary credentials, access to the collective's internal logistics systems, to historical distribution records, to the interagency communications archive that tracked regulatory updates across departments. I used all of them. The research paper Achafer had shown me was real, published 30 years ago in the Collective Research Consortium's medical journal. The full protocol for Vethane-class hemorrhagic variants, the Lethani-Marangorathi collaborative treatment study. It was in the consortium database. It was not in the standard medical archive. I searched the distribution records. When had the archive last been updated with new Vethane-class pathogen entries? 47 years ago. The original outbreak documentation. The consortium paper had been submitted for integration to the archive in Cycle 4, 292, 30 years ago. It had been routed to the Intelligence Directorate for security review. The security review documentation was not in the standard access tier, but it was in the Interagency Communications Archive, a summary record, the kind that got logged automatically when a regulatory decision crossed department lines. Research Integration Request, Vethane-class treatment protocol, Lethani-Marangorathi collaborative. Security review determination, hold pending assessment. Routing, Intelligence Directorate Technology Restriction Compliance. Basis, treatment protocol developed with significant contribution from Gorathi medical researchers. Gorathi affiliation status, non-aligned pending collective membership application, Year 4, 288. Application under review. Technology transfer protocols require assessment of knowledge-sharing implications with non-member species before distribution to the public medical archive. I read it twice. I looked for the follow-up determination. Research Integration Request Status Update. Hold extended pending additional review. Dated 5 years after the first hold. Research Integration Request Status Update. Hold extended classification review in progress. Dated 3 years after that. Then nothing. 22 years of nothing. The Gorathi had formally joined the collective in Year 4, 297. 5 years after the treatment protocol was submitted for integration. The research paper should have cleared the intelligence hold the moment their membership was finalized. It did not, because nobody had gone back to check, because it was in a queue somewhere, in a hold file, in a system managed by a department that had moved on to other priorities, because the bureaucracy that maintained the archive was the same bureaucracy that had created the hold, and the hold had become a permanent status, and permanent statuses do not generate follow-up reminders. 5 dead on outpost Marin 4. 200 dead in the Vethane system, 47 years ago. I did not know how many of those deaths the original outbreak would have caused regardless of a treatment protocol. But the Vethan system had burned out in 6 weeks. If a treatment protocol had been available and distributed through the standard archive, available to every station-level medical facility in the collective, I did not finish the thought. I looked at my desk. At the filing system I had built over 12 cycles, the one that had held up throughout everything, the one I was proud of. I thought about the classification record sitting in an interagency hold queue for 22 years, with nobody's name on it, nobody responsible, nobody checking. I thought about Akaffer sitting in the corridor beside me, drinking bad tea. Having the ability to help and choosing not to use it is also a harm. He had not said it as an accusation. He had said it as a fact about how his people operated. A principle 3,000 years old. We had the protocol. We had the cure not for this exact strain but for the family of strains that this had come from. We had it for 30 years, filed and held and reclassified and forgotten. And the humans had to come to our station and synthesize it from scratch and save our people and leave the formula behind, leave it for free, because why wouldn't they? Because we couldn't find our own paperwork. I stayed at my desk for a long time. Then I opened a new document. Request for Urgent Archive Integration Review Vethane Class Hemorrhagic Pathogen Treatment Protocols. Initiating Administrator Keth Voss, Outpost Marin 4. Priority Classification 1. Basis for request. I started writing. I wrote for 3 hours. I cited every document I had found. I cited the research paper. I cited the hold record. I cited the mortality statistics from the Marin 4 outbreak. I cited the original Vethan system outbreak records. I sent it to Collective Central Medical, to the Intelligence Directorate, to the Research Consortium Archive Administration, to the Council Health Oversight Committee, which I was not technically supposed to contact directly at my clearance level, but which I contacted anyway. Then I filed a copy in the station archive. My archive, the good one. I added a note at the bottom of the document. Treatment protocol synthesized by human medical vessel Nightingale, operating under emergency authorization, Article 7, subsection 12, during the Marin 4 outbreak. Protocol left on station at no charge. Full formula attached. For reference, comparison, and shame. I looked at the last 2 words for a while. I left them in.
The baby's name.
The review board was coming. He would do it again. 2 weeks later, Sierra delivered our child, a healthy girl, all the measurements in the normal range. Dr. Yun had left detailed post-operative notes in our medical system before the Nightingale departed standard collective format, cross-referenced against the residual effects of the intervention, and Dr. Van Molly's followed them exactly. The birth was uncomplicated. I was present this time. I was not sent out of the room. She was very small. I had known intellectually that New Kethsoron were small. It is different in practice. We had discussed names before the outbreak. We had a list, a properly filed list, cross-referenced against family naming conventions and cultural significance, with my notes on the reasoning for each option. Sierra looked at the list and said, "I want to add one." "The list is final," I said. "Habit." She looked at me. "What name?" I said. "James," she said. "Or something that sounds like it. Something close." I thought about a man sitting in a corridor at 0400, drinking bad tea, explaining a 3,000-year-old principle with the matter-of-fact delivery of someone who had simply never considered doing anything else. "That's a human name," I said. "Yes," Sierra said. The review board notification arrived on the same day. Formal proceedings to assess my Article 7 invocation, the emergency authorization, the admission of an embargoed vessel, the 17 other regulatory violations I had committed in order of filing. I read the notification. I filed an acknowledgement. I began preparing my documentation. Halren stopped by my office when the notification went out. He sat across from my desk without being invited and said, "Do you want company at the board? It's a formal proceeding. They don't allow. Do you want company?" I looked at him. Halren had been security chief on Marin 4 for 9 cycles. He had never once stopped by my office uninvited. "Yes," I said. "Thank you." He nodded and left. Dr. Van Molly sent a formal letter, the kind that goes in the record, stating that in her medical judgment the Article 7 invocation had been necessary, appropriate, and had directly prevented an estimated 40 to 60 additional fatalities based on the progression rate at the time of the Nightingale's arrival. She asked me to enter it into evidence. I would. The review board could do what it wanted. I had made 4 copies of every document. I had backed them up to 3 systems. If there was a system they hadn't accounted for, I would find it and back them up there too. I was a thorough administrator. I was holding her, our daughter, the one we had not named yet because Sierra and I were still discussing the question, when I thought about the archive request. I had received one response so far, an automated acknowledgement from the Intelligence Directorate, confirming receipt and indicating the matter would be reviewed within standard processing windows. Standard processing windows. I looked at the baby. Somewhere in this galaxy, a research paper that could help save people in situations exactly like the one Marin 4 had just survived was still sitting in a hold queue. 22 years in, my request had been filed, copied, distributed, and acknowledged, and somewhere out there, a worn-down medical ship with a hand-painted bird on the hull was moving through the border territories, picking up distress signals, docking at stations that weren't supposed to let them in, synthesizing cures from scratch and leaving them behind for free, no invoice, no leverage, no negotiation. Not because the collective couldn't do it, because the collective had done it, had the research, had the protocol, had the capability, and filed it, and the humans found the gaps and filled them. I sat with that for a while. Then I looked at Sierra and said, "What about Yun for a name?" Sierra considered. "Second name," she said. "First name can be traditional." Agreed. I looked at our daughter. "Welcome to Marin 4, I told her. "Your father has a very good filing system. He's going to fix some things with it." She did not respond. She was very new, but I had it in writing.